You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Last football game of the season. Lane Kiffin and the Ole Miss Rebels preparing for the Duke Blue Devils in the Gator Bowl tonight at 8 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Central. We are doing a pregame show like we always do. We are joined by John Macon Gillespie of Ole Miss on SI to talk about Ole Miss football for about the next half hour. And John, I do want to say today was hilarious because I'm getting a lot of traction on a video I released this morning that was just simply Lane Kiffin was right about the playoff all along. It's amazing that all the people angry at Lane Kiffin across the country, they're just flocking to that video right now.
Yeah, he definitely stirred the pot there with that argument, especially with how Alabama did in their bowl game and things like that. I mean, people have, I don't know if bookmarked the tweets are the right way to phrase it, but I mean they've come back and taken shots at Lane for that. But I mean with how lopsided the playoff games have been, outside of the one with Arizona State and Texas yesterday, I mean, you can kind of see his point. But if I were the committee, I probably would not have put Ole Miss, Alabama, and South Carolina in. But looking at it now, I mean, I think it definitely would have made for more competitive games. But I'm not the one who gets to make those decisions. So
yeah,
it just kind of is what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is. But the reality, we can all talk and laugh and have good fun about Ole Miss in the playoff, what's going on. Ole Miss lost to Kentucky, and we're not saying they didn't. But if you want to have a conversation about who is the better team between SMU, Ole Miss, Miami, Alabama, and South Carolina, I'm going to have that argument with you all day, and I'm going to win. Ole Miss is better than all of those teams. But whenever you say Ole Miss deserves to make the playoffs, that's kind of a bridge too far for me. But if you want to have that enclosed conversation, is Ole Miss better than these teams? Yes, I will have that conversation all day.
I think I agree with you there because I think that you can be a better team and not exactly deserve, in quotes, to get in based on resumes and based on, hey, you lost to Kentucky, which is the thing everybody comes back to because Kentucky was a dumpster fire this year within the Southeastern Conference.
Yeah, they went Ole Miss in 7.
Yes, exactly. So, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think nuance is sometimes lost in these conversations where it's all or nothing. It's either you're saying, okay, Ole Miss should have been in or they should not have been in. I think there's a little bit of an in-between there where you can say, okay, Ole Miss would have probably been the best team out of that group to be in, but that doesn't necessarily mean they deserved to be in. So I think that's fair.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing. I think everybody misunderstood Lane Kiffin's argument as an SEC because everybody wants to do this Big Ten versus SEC thing because you have the ESPN crowd that's going to be obviously pro-SEC because they pay billions of dollars to be pro-SEC. And then you have the Fox crowd that's just opposite going to the Big Ten because they are paying billions of dollars to be all in on the Big Ten. And they want everything to be this big tribal thing. But what Lane Kiffin was saying, he was putting those 5 teams in a box. And that is why he said he wasn't talking about the matchups of the SEC or Indiana or anything like that, even though they were getting beat. He was saying that Ole Miss belonged in the field. And that was all that he was concerned with.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that was definitely his argument. And, whichever side of that argument you fall on, at the end of the day, it doesn't really impact things. Now, how some of those teams performed in the playoff this year may impact what happens next year. I do think that's potentially true. But I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, Ole Miss is in Jacksonville fixing to play in the Gator Bowl with a shot at 10 wins again, which is a feat in and of itself. I've written about that some at Ole Miss on SI, how the last time they won 10 games in 3 out of 4 seasons, Johnny Vaught was the head coach. That was 59, 60, and 62. That's a feat in and of itself. That's not necessarily enough to fix the fan base's feelings about not getting into the playoff, but it is still something to root for today if you're an Ole Miss fan, for sure.
Yeah, and I talked with Kenton Gibbs on this morning's podcast and everything. It's like, you think about it and just want to look at historical context, Ole Miss hasn't done what they are doing right now in football since pre-integration.
Mm-hmm.
And that is kind of the benchmark and has been the benchmark for the way that people have looked at football, and especially the Ole Miss football program, because of how good Ole Miss was in the 1950s. I do think it's interesting that Lane Kiffin and everybody, Ole Miss is building a machine right now of a football program. And it's at the point, we'll change gears right now to the Duke game. You have this swan song of all these, I'm going to say seniors, but it's upperclassmen, Jackson Dart and those guys that have won 38 games in 4 years. A win over Duke, that's 39 games. That is almost averaging 10 wins a season over 4 years. That is unheard of. They have done so much, and yet the fan base is like, hey, Austin Simmons might get to play tonight. Some of these young guys, they're very honestly, that is what has the fan base excited, because they see, okay, as long as Lane Kiffin's here, Ole Miss football is going to be fine. Let's see what this next group looks like, because every year it seems to get better and better.
Yeah, and I think that Austin Simmons has definitely, him specifically, he has definitely sparked a lot of excitement, I guess, about next year and the years ahead. Because, yeah, you can be disappointed in how this season ended up with not getting into the playoff if you're an Ole Miss fan, but. And I know it's just one drive against Georgia, but the way that he was surgical in that drive, I think, has a lot of people drinking the Kool-Aid a little bit regarding 2025 and beyond. And I think that Simmons has a chance to be really special if he can have pieces around him starting next year. I mean, he's been in this system for a couple years now. He knows what it's about. He knows all that stuff, and he's got all the talent in the world. So I think that next year for sure is going to be interesting with Austin Simmons leading that charge. And, we'll see if he gets in tonight. I think Jackson wants to play the full 60 minutes. I think he's pretty much said that. But, depending on what the score is, we'll just have to see. But, yeah, I think the fan base has a right to be excited about Austin Simmons. I don't know how quickly he will get to, okay, this is a quarterback who can get you to the playoff. It may be next year. It may not be. But I think regardless, he's got a bright future ahead of him if he can stay healthy.
Yeah, the way that I think this is going to work out for Austin is this year, Ole Miss is going to be real similar to what Tennessee was thought about after their Citrus Bowl win over Iowa. I think Ole Miss is going to be thought as a team that has a chance that if everything goes right, they could get into the field, but most likely they're not. There was two teams that were kind of in that boat. It was Tennessee and Oklahoma, if you want to see the variance of what those thoughts can be. I think that Austin Simmons is going to grow over the course of this year, and I think Ole Miss has basically recruited at a very high level with multiple years of eligibility in the transfer portal so far, which means they might not be doing this, but it feels like they're building towards 2026. That's kind of like the year that the baseball class were the big recruiting class as juniors before their draft. I think football might be doing something similar to that.
Yeah, it's definitely possible. And I mean, I'm not going to write off 2025 having the potential to be a playoff team. I'm not going to say that because of how the playoff is now, and what Ole Miss's schedule looks like, depending on what those teams look like when Ole Miss faces them. There's a lot of variables there, and depending on what Austin Simmons does, how quickly he grows as a starter, things like that, that's going to influence it. But you could be right that, 2026 could be, we talked a couple of years ago how it kind of felt like they were building for 2024. Obviously, you fell short in 24, so okay, revamp, try to run it back, do it again. We'll have to see how it goes, and I don't know exactly what fan base wide expectations will be for next year, but I do think there's going to be some excitement because I think people are really bought into this Austin Simmons thing, and we'll see how he does. I think it'll take some time, just a few games at least to get his feet wet and everything, but talent wise, I think he's over the moon and has a chance to be really special.
When we come back, we will drill down a little bit deeper in the Jackson Dart thing with him going for his, I'm not sure exactly, like 29th win or something like that. It's some ridiculous amount that no other Ole Miss quarterback has done. We'll talk about that in just a second. But first, I do want to let you know there is nothing like the energy of being at a live game, the roar of the crowd, the sound of the sneakers squeaking on the court, and even spotting a few celebrities in the stands. I remember going to an NBA game a few years back, and the electricity in the arena was unforgettable. You just can't replicate that watching from your couch. This year, I'm looking forward to catching some more games live in the arena down in Orlando, and Game Time makes it easier than ever with the Game Time Picks feature, whether it's basketball, concerts, or theater. Game Time helps you find the best deals on great seats without the hassle of endless scrolling. I just hopped on the app to check out the tickets for an upcoming game, and Game Time Picks made it a breeze to find a super deal on amazing seats. Plus, the app showed me panoramic seat views so I could pick the perfect spot. No guesswork, no surprises, and it's not just sports. Game Time also has incredible deals on concerts and comedy shows. Planning to grab tickets to a concert next month, actually. I'm going to see Midland, and with all in prices, I was able to see exactly what I was going to pay up front, no hidden fees at checkout. And what I love most about Game Time is their lowest price guarantee. If you find a better deal, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. And with event cancellation protection, your tickets are covered if plans change. It's the most flexible ticketing app I have ever used. It's like the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Again, that's code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. All right, we're back with John Macon Gillespie talking about it. And just so everybody knows, kickoff has been pushed back about 30 minutes due to the unfortunate events in New Orleans yesterday and the Sugar Bowl happening as we speak right now. So the Gator Bowl now has a college football playoff lead-in. So everybody, the number of eyes that Ole Miss was going to have in this game was going to be about what it was, but now it's even going to be a little bit more because of that lead-in.
Yeah, one would think for sure. And I know there was some talk yesterday before they officially did the time thing that the Sugar Bowl was going to take eyes away from the Gator Bowl. And obviously, I mean, in the grand scheme of humanity, that doesn't really impact what's actually going on right now in the serious nature of everything going on in New Orleans. And prayers out to all those families and those affected. I think an Ole Miss student was among those that were affected. I think I saw that on social media today. So, but yeah, for sure, it is going to be, in my opinion, that there should be more eyes on the Gator Bowl tonight, following that playoff game than there would have been originally. So, that's a good thing for Ole Miss. Obviously, you would have liked to have the playoff stage to yourself. That's going to be the talk of the offseason. But, again, kind of like we were talking about earlier, this is an opportunity to get 10 wins again. This is an opportunity to, in my opinion, continue momentum that you've had as a program over the last few years in reaching that 10-win mark, which, I think is very important.
And with that 10-win mark and with what Jackson Dart did and meant to the Ole Miss program, it is kind of important for this Jackson. He needs his flowers tonight. Whenever he does come out of the game, if he has the pitch count, because in 3 weeks is the Senior Bowl practice week. So that matters, and that is so important. But whenever he comes out of the game, I do hope that Ole Miss fans give him the ovation that curtain call deserves, because what you have witnessed is a Mount Rushmore level quarterback for Ole Miss football, and he needs to be treated that way. I do not think that history is going to come back and even going to put him ahead of either one of the Mannings, but I do think he is firmly on the Mount Rushmore for all eternity.
I think he should be, for sure. I mean, if you look at it from just a statistical standpoint, from a win standpoint, but also from the perspective of what he did for this locker room, I think is maybe the biggest part of it, in my opinion, because he was the unquestioned leader of this team over the last 2 seasons. And part of that third season, I think, as well, because after going through a couple of quarterback competitions in Oxford, the team was fully united behind Jackson Dart. Okay, even when they brought in Spencer Sanders and all that kind of stuff for the 23 season, which seems like an eternity ago now. It seemed like this team was bought in behind Jackson Dart, and they played for Jackson Dart. They really got up for him and for what he was able to do on the field and in that locker room. So. The wins are what they are. The stats are what they are. He's going to leave with a bunch of school records. But in my opinion, what he meant intangibly to the program over the last few years should not be last on that list. I think that impact can't be overstated.
Now, the other thing that is coming up in this game that everybody is going to talk about is whether or not Logan Diggs is going to see action in this game. Now, he showed up in – I guess the Gator Bowl put out some video of practice, and of that, basically he was the guy in the backfield with Jackson Dart, which makes me think that he's getting reps to actually play. Inside the Rebels, I think, reported that he was going to play. There's been some discrepancies on that, but I do think he's going to play as well. What do you think Logan Diggs would mean to this Ole Miss team?
To this team specifically?
Tonight? This team and also the transfer portal, because for some reason this would give you an opportunity to determine whether or not you need to go get one running back or two.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. Well, first, I will say that if he does play tonight, I don't know exactly if he would get a full load or not, because it's been a while since he's been in game action. Okay. But I think that what he could bring to the table for the rushing game in general, I think is very big, because I think he brings a dynamic to the rushing attack that Ole Miss didn't really have this year, as far as what he's been able to produce in past years. I think kind of is evidence of that. So I think it would be big tonight. Again, he may be on a pitch count if he were able to play tonight, but looking ahead to next year, I think he's going to really be beneficial as well, because, Ole Miss has to do something in that running back room entering next year. And I think they've already started to address that with guys like Shakai Mills-Knight, Kiwan Lacey, guys like that. But something definitely has to be done. And, you'll be able to know if Logan Diggs plays tonight, you'll be able to know a little bit more about just how much needs to be done if he's able to go tonight.
Yeah, and J.J. Pegues and Walter Nolan and Princely Amon-Mielon actually playing in this bowl game. I do think it's funny, John, that Princely Amon-Mielon, his last college football game, is going to be in the Gator Bowl.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's, I don't know, not necessarily poetic, but it is ironic maybe a little bit that's going to happen. And I think, look, people can have whatever opinions they want about these things, about, these guys who have opted into this bowl game and decided to play, despite some of them having first-round NFL draft potential. But to me, I think it speaks really well about the inside state of the Ole Miss program, that these guys have decided to play. And I may be wrong about that. There may be something else to it, but that's the way I view it, is that I think it speaks well that this team obviously had the playoff as a big goal and they didn't reach it, but these guys want to finish it out anyway. To me, that's just a really good sign for the overall state of the program, the culture of that locker room. And I think that says a lot if that's the real reason why they opted in, because, a lot of these guys were 1-year guys out of the portal, and they want to go on and finish. So, I think that should be a really good sign if you're an Ole Miss fan, in my opinion.
Yeah, and Lane said that a lot of that had to do with Jackson's leadership. Once he decided he was all in, that all of a sudden he was basically recruiting his teammates to be all in. So if they were on the fence, obviously that would come to it again. So when we come back, we are going to look at some final score predictions. We are going to do some final thoughts on this Ole Miss versus Duke game. Stick around. The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel. That's America's #1 sports book, because right now new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets. If that first $5 bet wins, FanDuel has so many ways for you to pick up a W. I love betting on which player will score a touchdown and how many points each player will score. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel. It is an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, so we're going to put some finishing touches on this football game. This is the last football game of the 2024 season, but is also the first football game of 2025. So you're kind of in zombie 2024 land and hopeful 2025 land. That's kind of where Ole Miss fans are living at the moment. So, John, how do you foresee this Gator Bowl going?
Well, in our final score predictions over at Ole Miss on SI that we ran yesterday, I think Ole Miss is going to prove to be too much for Duke tonight. I really do. I think that what Ole Miss has available on its roster tonight is going to one. I think Ole Miss is just a better team than Duke this year. That's just my opinion. But two, Duke losing some key pieces after the conclusion of the regular season, I think is really going to put them behind the 8 ball tonight. I have Ole Miss winning 38-10. I think was my official score prediction. Yeah, I think the offense will look pretty good tonight in Jackson Dart's curtain call, as it were. I think that they'll put up some pretty good numbers. And yeah, I think ultimately they'll just be too much. I don't know how much Duke will be able to do offensively either against this Ole Miss front.
You know, the funny thing is that is my prediction. 38-10 was my exact prediction for this ball game as well. This is the way I think this is going to go. And I had Kenton Gibbs from Locked On ACC on the show earlier today. And he said he agreed with me on this. In the first quarter, I'm expecting it to be a little bit of a cagey game because of how good the Duke Blue Devils defense can be.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever you do that, though, and the offense can't move and it gets stagnant, you have what happened at the end of the Texas game yesterday, to where you just get worn down. And I think a second quarter similar to what Arkansas was happens, and it's 24-3 or 31-3 at the end of the first half. Starters comes out, it gets weird after that, and the final score ends up being 38-10. That's what I think is going to happen in this ballgame.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. And Duke's defense can cause problems for sure. I mean, Manny Diaz is a defensive guy. And Ole Miss saw a defense that was initially his last year in the Peach Bowl, and they seem to handle that pretty well. But still, his defense has a tendency to be really, really good, and this Duke unit is no exception. So that's what some of the guys on the staff have Ole Miss scored in the 40s, and I think that's just a little too generous. I don't think they'll get that, but I do think that they will be in well enough shape to be able to put this game away and win it pretty comfortably.
All right, let's go into the comment section for about the last 5 minutes of this show and say, this is from James Hall. He says he hopes to send the players playing in their final game at Ole Miss with the win off. Also, no injuries for either team. Hotty toddy. Yes, it is big for Lane Kiffin, encouraging players to play in the bowl game, that they make it through healthy, John.
I think so for sure. Those guys who have NFL draft futures, that has to be a focus tonight. That you want your Jackson Darts, your Walter Nolans, your Princely Umanmielans, so on and so forth down the line. Jordan Watkinses, guys like that, to come out of this thing healthy. And I mean, obviously, if you're Lane Kiffin, you want them to come away with a win as well. So those are the two big things for those NFL draft guys.
Yeah, and we have this from the GOAT Kid. I'm ready for the game. Ole Miss fans are kind of starting to get excited right now. Now, it doesn't change. I listened, I guess, Brad Logan and his Red and Blue Crew podcast, and he said that they are not even opening up the upper deck in this game, and that traveling and population of the game, it's not a very populated and popular game right now. So I'm expecting 35,000, 40,000 at best.
Yeah, I think so. I believe it was Brad. I saw a report that that they weren't opening the upper deck. And I mean, it just kind of is what it is. You know, I mean, it's January 2nd. I mean, you know, some people are just not going to travel
It's
for
a
that.
work
So
day. It's honestly a work day.
it is for a lot of people. Yeah. So, I mean, you can do what you can do. And that's just how it is.
Mark Walsh says, need a blowout today, 45-17 Ole Miss. Mark from the STL. Yeah, that there's some sense there. I mean, that makes sense. If Lane Kiffin, let's say he wins this game 45-10, and Lane Kiffin is the face of this college football playoff, got it wrong, this is all the ammunition he needs to be able to crow forever, right?
I would think so. He may crow forever anyway, just based on his social media presence. But you know, just that would definitely provide him with some ammunition for that, for sure.
Tyrone Bigham says, ready to see Diggs suit up.
Yeah,
So,
and I think, like we said, I think that would be big for Ole Miss if he's able to tonight. I think that seeing a new, fresh face back there in that running back room would be cathartic almost for a lot of fans, you know, because of just how that running game has been this year, for sure.
the Goat Kid asks, is Harris playing? I don't think Trey Harris has played in this game. I don't think he even practiced.
No. All indicators say that he is not. So which is fine. I mean, he's been through injury issues, and you know he's got the draft ahead of him too. So he needs to take care of Trey, number one, right now.
Yeah, he's the future next Ole Miss second round draft pick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Stephen Russell says he's from Covington, Louisiana. He's predicting Ole Miss 41-13 over Duke. So that is interesting. You have a defensive struggle that is developing right now in the Sugar Bowl. It looks like defenses are going to control this game, and Georgia's defense looks like Georgia's defense after one series. So that is pretty cool indeed. But I'll let everybody get back to that real quick. John, what is something going on at Ole Miss on SI? Let everybody know what you're doing.
We'll have our in-game updates piece going throughout the game tonight. We should have, well, I know we'll have a game recap immediately after the game. We may have some quote type stuff going up, you know, during the night, and then into tomorrow, obviously, as well, with how late this one's going to be over. But yeah, it should be a lot of fun. We're going to be having some in-game breaking stuff. If anything happens like that, we'll have some short pieces go up on the side as well. So it should be fun. Looking forward to it, and closing out the 2024 campaign with a bang.
Hey, John, thank you so much for being on my pregame show all year. That was awesome of you. You didn't have to do it, but you did. You provided excellent content for everybody leading up to the ball game. Anybody that needs to follow some game action, go check out Ole Miss on SI, and they'll be able to check you out. The first big play of the Sugar Bowl happened that distracted me. So we'll see what's up. Thank you very much, John, and everybody enjoy the Gator Bowl, and let's go.
All right. Appreciate it, Steven. Thank you.